Alaska was pioneered with the aviation industry. To most of Alaska's people, flying is commonplace. They fly to town to buy groceries, fly to a remote lake for a weekend, or they fly for a living. This vast territory contains only 1/8 of 1% of America's population and a sparse road system. Most of the scattered communities in the state are served primarily by the airplane. Alaska has 10 times the average number of pilots in America, but Alaska accounts for about 5% of the nation's aircraft accidents. Deaths due to airplane crashes are increasing, and many are looking for a way to change this trend. Statistics are just numbers, but airplane accidents and deaths are harsh realities that have touched many Alaskans. In the 2 years of producing Alaska Review, we photographed and talked to these Alaska bush pilots.
Well, I think that southeast Alaska probably is one of the areas that is probably the hardest to fly and adapt to of any place in Alaska itself, because you have the mountainous areas, and with that you get your very bad visibility, low ceilings and poor visibility type situations and high winds. I have about 4,500 hours on floats, all local in this area here.
Jack Swaim, owner of Weber Air Service of Ketchikan, was killed in 1978 when his plane plummeted into the ocean.
Well, the helicopter was just the only thing to do.
Do you consider it a risky proposition every year?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the hardest ones, but risk is just what you make of it. Be careful. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I haven't had any problems.
Jim Isabel, a 30-year bush pilot in the Nome area, died in his helicopter while herding reindeer. And the pilot of this plane, new to Alaska, was killed 1 week later while attempting to prop start his plane. Flying is on the increase in Alaska, and this is one reason being used to explain the rise in the number of deaths in the air. Alaska has grown rapidly in the past few years, bringing many people to Alaska and providing the same people with the means to get a pilot's license or buy an airplane. Anchorage has the highest concentration of aircraft in the state. This part of the state also accounts for most of the airplane accidents. With nearly 4,000 planes registered here and over 7,000 pilots residing in this city, Anchorage is one of the most flying cities in the United States. There are 5 busy airports here, one of which is Lake Hood.
That is the busiest float plane operation in the world, Lake Hood.
Do you have any idea of how many planes are out there?
There's approximately 600 based out there.
The towers of Anchorage International and Merrill Field can provide a good vantage point from the ground of the busy skies around Anchorage.
Beechcraft 042, runway 6, wind 200 at 10, cleared to land.
We've got a mix of traffic up here that involves just about every type that is flying in the world today. That ranges from the C-5 going into Elmendorf or the little Cessna going into Lake Hood. 747s, DC-10s, military F-4s, tactical aircraft. We've got everything.
What kind of problems does that cause for you in controlling all that aircraft?
Well, you have varying airspeeds, different performance characteristics of the type of aircraft that have to be taken into consideration, and also we have a problem here because of most of it is in a congested area. We're hemmed in by the mountains on one side and the water on the other, and we're operating in a bowl, and you're trying to put 3 pounds into a 2-pound bag is what it amounts to.
How many planes call Merrill Field their home?
About 800 and almost 900. Just a moment. Piper 61 Hotel, affirmative. Report West Anchorage High School.
Well, how many flights come in here per day on an average day?
On an average day, we run sometimes around 1,200, 1,300 a day sometimes.
Learning how to fly is an attractive and available option to Alaskans, and many take advantage.
And what will this all entail in the air?
It's usually the instructor gives you the basic maneuvers that you'll be going through, how to handle an airplane up in the air, how to taxi an airplane. The airplane's handled a lot differently than a car. Your first reaction will be to steer it with a steering wheel, and they'll show you where that is different.
046, taxi 924. 046. 1091, clear for takeoff, turn 10.
Nearly anyone can be trained to be a pilot, and most are in command of an airplane after about 12 hours of flight instruction and ground courses.
That's it. Okay, the turn's established. Now neutralize your pressures. Very good.
1 South, radio landing with numbers.
Even with all these students getting time in the air, the figures show that this group of pilots have the least amount of fatal air crashes. Joe Wilbur is owner of Wilbur Flight Operations and also runs a flight school.
There's very few people that can't be a safe pilot. There are a few that never get to be, but most of them are capable of it. We don't wash out but very few because of their inabilities. There's some of them that won't work and won't study and won't learn what they need to know and don't go on for that reason.
Airplanes are more than a transportation tool for Alaskans. They perform as a workhorse, doing many things unheard of in other areas, like this herring fishery in Valdez Arm. Here, 27 planes are circling tightly overhead trying to spot fish for boats. 5 people were killed in 2 separate mid-air collisions in a similar situation at Cook Inlet in Bristol Bay that spring. Commercial pilot Sumner Putman was flying that day in Valdez. He looked at our tape and told us about this air traffic controller's nightmare.
I'm sure that there's nothing like this has ever happened in the history of aviation. The events that took place in Prince William Sound last spring are, I mean, I've done everything you can do with an airplane, and I've never seen anything like that, because there were constant near misses taking place out here. I mean, people were flashing past me. This is a very rare situation where everybody was after a lot of money. There was thousands and thousands of dollars riding on it, and the water was where the money was, and the planes were all in the sky, and everybody's attention was focused on the boats and the water and the fish, and nobody was watching for airplanes. Everybody was putting their life on the line to make money, and nobody made money. Watch, see those 2 planes? Real close together, and each is in the other guy's blind spot. Neither of these guys can see each other, see? And they're flying real close together, and it doesn't take very much wind current or air pocket or slight change in direction to run them into each other.
They have a mid-air right there.
Have a mid-air collision.
Do you think that the pilots in this situation were using good judgment being there?
Well, up until somebody got killed, it was apparent to all of us that it was dangerous and somebody could get killed, but nobody had gotten killed, so it was sort of okay. I am ashamed of myself in a way for staying at it as long as I did. But I was hungry. I needed money. Everybody there needed money, and nobody was making any. That was the motivating factor. Well, I'm not going to do it again.
This dangerous situation is not typical. Most accidents that happen in Alaska can be traced to a few reasons, and most pilots know them.
Biggest accident factor is weather. There's improper weather reporting. They're closing down half of the reporting stations, and weather relates to almost every fatal accident. And it's pilot judgment, of course. He's supposed to know better, but...
Weather-wise, it can trap a small aircraft if the people are not aware of how fast the conditions can change. We've seen people on small aircraft coming through here. They treat it sometimes as if there was an airport about every 10 miles, which there isn't.
It's the standard thing that happens every year. The weather starts turning bad, and everybody's flying and pushing the weather, you know what I mean? Flying routes that they may not know as well as they should for the weather that they're flying into, with loads that are too heavy to turn around in the spots that they find themselves in and stuff like that. It's generally a matter of judgment on the part of the pilot.
Even though pilots can tell you why there are crashes, it isn't stopping them. Deaths due to accidents are still on the increase. Gene Morris is the man in charge of the Federal Aviation Administration's Accident Prevention Office, a department that is supposed to find a way to reduce aircraft accidents in Alaska.
The FAA is not really concerned with the protection of the fellow from himself, because that's his prerogative. He can do what he wants to do along those lines, because we've got a large number of people who fly in Alaska every day, year in and year out, that do not have accidents. It can be done without accidents, but it's up to the fellow to decide how to do it that way.
So is there anything that the FAA can do to help cut down those accidents?
That's what the accident prevention program is. The program is a system of trying to get people to help themselves, to realize what the shortcomings are, and to just get out and do it.
I have a private pilot's license.
But yet you're coming back for some more instructions. Why?
Basically, I'm not very comfortable with Alaska flying conditions with just a private pilot's license. I think you have to have some more background in instrument ratings, and unfortunately, there just aren't that many nice, pretty days around here, and you're going to be flying in weather sooner or later. Without a rating, the chances are, from what I read, that you're going to crash. Simple as that. I'd just soon not crash.
Southeast Alaska's weather has brought down some of the best pilots in the state. The weather along the southeastern coast of Alaska is notorious. Some of the most expert pilots that know southeastern conditions are the pilots of Alaska Airlines. Even though they have the advantage of big, powerful jets and the ability to fly above the clouds, their respect for this unpredictable and rugged area of the state remains.
To exercise extreme caution, especially the newcomers that aren't familiar with this area. It's just a dangerous area to be in if you don't understand it.
Alaska Review flew with Alaska Airlines in the cockpit on a southeastern trip, where they demonstrated the newest device in weather observation. This color radar system, installed first on Alaska Airlines, shows pilots weather and ground conditions hundreds of miles in advance, and also allows them to land in the lowest minimums in the country.
And the green, darker green, is the less tense or lower land area, and then this area in the yellow is the hills starting to go up, and then the red is the peaks of the taller hills. The darkness is the water.
What kind of things do you see when you come into Juneau sometimes as far as weather goes?
Juneau is a fog or low stratus problem usually if the weather's down. This is the end of the Chilkat mountain range coming down. This is the inlet. Gustavus would be sitting off over here. And the village of Hoonah would be off in this direction here.
Securing Alaska 62. Yeah, we're on the descent here.
Now this is Sitka Sound here. Mount Edgecombe sits over here. The VOR that we're using for navigation out at the moment sits on Bjork Island, which is right there. Get all the information you can before departing. Know where you're going to, know the capabilities of the aircraft that you're flying. And just play it safe. No heroics. You have a lot of beaches, but they're sometimes hard to find in the fog, too.
If you were going to give a general aviation pilot some advice about flying in Southeastern, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him to check his weather very thoroughly before he ever attempted to enter into this area down here. Because sometimes this weather can change so rapidly that he can be trapped in here, and the airports sometimes are quite a ways apart where he can get down safely. Especially a newcomer from, say, down in the lower part of the United States here, that they're not familiar with this terrain up here and the vastness of the whole area and how the weather can change so rapidly.
The FAA is supposed to try and help cut the private pilot accident rate, but Gene Morris says there's only so much a government agency can do.
When it comes to the private pilot, the general aviation pilot, who is on a hunting trip or a fishing trip, the laws are not designed to regulate him or what he does as long as he's not endangering the life or property of others. So accident prevention program starts where the law quits.
We can go out and kill ourselves in a car if we want, and yet there's strict regulations that tell people how to operate cars. And even though a person may have the right to kill himself in an airplane, it still generates a public cost. We have to go out and search for them. We have to go out, I mean, it costs thousands of dollars to find a wrecked airplane, and it's a public cost to everybody. Aren't there more actions that could be taken to prevent some of these accidents than?
I'm sure that there could be. I'm sure there could be. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that the FAA's position is that the FAA is doing what Congress outlined for them to do with the Act of '58. And the question of additional restrictions or additional what have you, safety requirements on the part of pilots, that rests with the lawmaking authority, not with the enforcement. Now, we in the accident prevention program are trying to sell safety, but we can't enforce it because there is no law that says that he can't do it.
So according to the chief accident prevention person in Alaska, private pilot safety is basically an individual responsibility, unless someone passes stricter laws. But it's a different situation with commercial pilots. They're providing public transportation and operate under stricter regulations. A look at commercial bush flying and their unique problems. Next program on Alaska Review.